Hello, 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 and welcome to the Jolly Heretic. Now, female and mass murderer, or wannabe mass murderer. These are terms that don't normally go together. America has a long history of school shootings, of school mass murders, and it is always a male. And in general, overwhelmingly, murders are committed by males. Female murderers are like hen's teeth. They are a very rare phenomenon. And so today I want to look at, in light of the fact that there has been a school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin, in which a number of people, no one has been killed, thank goodness, but there's a number of people that have been injured. There's 6 people injured and 2 in a critical condition. I want to look at what it is that causes a female to kill. What is the psychology of a female murderer? Before I do that, could you please do me a great favor and subscribe? It really, really helps if you subscribe. Subscribe here on YouTube, leave a comment, leave a like, hit the bell, share the video and all that. It really helps me do that. And also, could you subscribe to my Substack? That's jollyheretic.com, where I put all the most base content I dare put here, where I put interviews, where I put live streams, where I put in-person stuff, where I put films, and where if you like what I do, you can support me with the cost of a pint of beer a month. Okay, back to the video. So what's happened? We've known that a female, a natal female, people were speculating the person was trans, but according to her boyfriend, her online boyfriend, this person, Natalie Samantha Rupnow, who is 15 years old, has gone to her old school, her elementary school, Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin, and has shot eight people. Now, at the time of going to press, as it were, fortunately, no one has died. 6 people. Six people have been injured. 2 of them critically. Now, we all know what causes men to kill. It's psychopathy. Men who are high in psychopathic traits, that is to say, very low agreeableness and very low impulse control, elements of narcissism, this sort of thing. These people have a tendency to kill. Women are low in psychopathy. Women have a much higher agreeableness than males, and women, on average, have much higher impulse control than males. So it's very, very rare to get a female killer. And the modal psychology of a female killer is rather different from that of a male killer. And this woman seems to fit with it. There's Miss Rupnow. Now that psychology is essentially what is known as borderline personality disorder. And borderline personality disorder crosses over very strongly, in fact the symptoms are pretty much the same, as post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder is obviously environmental. Borderline personality disorder is about 50% genetic. Now, what is borderline personality disorder? Borderline personality disorder is essentially a person who has a fundamental fear of abandonment. Their whole life is focused around a fundamental fear of abandonment. And related to this, they have very poor emotional regulation. They move very quickly and very suddenly between extremes of emotion. They can go from being, narcissistic one minute and thinking they're great and thinking they're perfect, to total despair the next minute and thinking they're appalling and thinking they're dreadful. They can move from being very nice to you and very pleasant to you one minute to you doing the slightest thing which upsets them, and then boom, they hate you and they want to destroy you and they think you're terrible. Such people will tend to idealize those with whom they have relationships. So they see the world in a very childlike, black and white, cartoonish way. You are either good or evil. And in relationships, they will tend to idealize those whom they are with as a way of making sense of a world which they experience as frightening chaos where they could be abandoned at any moment. They find people and they see those people as their rescuer, as their special person, and they idealize them and think they're wonderful. But then that person will do the slightest thing which irritates them, and then they will de-idealize them, and they will, they will think they're evil, and they will make that quite clear, and then they will calm down and they will idealize them again. Such people, in extreme, they have a very unstable sense of self. So as I said, they can oscillate between being, narcissistic or whatever, to being and grandiose, to being schizoid and wanting nothing to do with anybody, or they can go between being very, very kind and lovely to being absolutely psychotic. And such people could also go into what's called borderline psychosis, when they're under very strong levels of stress, they dissociate and they can almost go into a different world where they become fully psychotic, and they're convinced the world's out to destroy them as a way of keeping people away from them, and so on. They have sort of paranoid. It crosses over basically into paranoid schizophrenia. So that is borderline personality disorder. As I say, it's significantly genetic, but it can also be induced by a very bad childhood environment, basically an abusive childhood environment, in particular inconsistent parenting, where you can't rely on the emotions of your parents, where love is something that has to be earned, it does not go without saying. You can't rely on your parents, you don't know what they're going to be like from one moment to the next. And so in order to deal with this, you become a borderline personality. You don't develop a clear sense of who you are, and you're constantly learning to manipulate your parents and things like this in order to get what you want from them, because they're so utterly unpredictable. You can't develop a fixed, clear sense of self. You have to be on edge, ready for destruction all the time. Now, post-traumatic stress disorder is a high degree of stress, i.e. a highly unpredictable and nasty environment. You can see how that's basically the same as a childhood like that. And so the response to post-traumatic stress disorder is often very, very similar in terms of symptoms to borderline personality disorder. Now, and this is the main thing. This condition, particularly post-traumatic stress disorder, is what women who tend to kill tend to have, because you can see that they go through periods of oscillating between different kinds of self, periods of being psychotic. Now, related to this is what's called vulnerable narcissism. So you have grandiose narcissism, where the person just thinks they're wonderful and they're entitled and they're great. And you have vulnerable narcissism, where the person, it's clearly related to BPD, where the person sees themselves as a victim, sees themselves as the biggest victim, and therefore they sort of look for people who they can manipulate into looking after them, into caring for them, and all this sort of thing. They have very similar kind of traits, idealization, all this, as BPD, but they will promote themselves. Someone that has BPD can be quite grandiose, and they can promote themselves as being wonderful a lot of the time. They can go through narcissistic phases. These people, no, they think they're great, and they think others should look after them, and they're entitled. But the way they do it is by being the biggest victim ever. You must understand them to be a victim. You must accept that as such. And if you upset them, whereas a person who is got BPD will just get really, really, really angry and try to emotionally destroy you or whatever, get dysregulated. These people are better. These people will fall apart in the face of criticism, but they won't explode. They're introverts rather than extroverts, so they won't explode outwards. They will take vengeance. They will plan. They will think about how to take vengeance on you, how to get their own back. And this is where we're starting to see what this person is like. And the other element to women who kill is often they will convince themselves that there is an altruistic motivation to what they are doing. There will be an element of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. There will be an element to which they will project their own problems onto other people. They will say, these people have serious problems, and therefore, in a sense, my killing them is a good thing. I am a moral person. I am female. I'm altruistic. I am doing something altruistic and kind by killing these people. So these are the three elements then to the female, to the murderess. Post-traumatic stress disorder or borderline personality disorder. Aspects of vulnerable narcissism, i.e. this desire to take revenge, and the way revenge is a dish best served cold sort of thing, which relates to the narcissistic dimension of borderline personality disorder. And finally, this Munchausen syndrome by proxy, where they feel they're doing something good, where they project their own problems onto everybody else, and they want to, and they therefore kill them. Now, what have we got with Natalie Samantha Rupnow? She has published a manifesto called War Against Humanity, in which she states that her parents are scum, Her parents didn't really love her. She felt that she was the wrong child in that house. She strongly implies that her father is an alcoholic. She strongly implies that her mother is a drug addict, basically. And she talks about how her parents have been divorced multiple times. So really, what they have given her is an extremely unstable environment, an extremely unstable, unpredictable environment. Multiple divorces, you can imagine lots of arguments. What predicts divorce? Well, it's psychopathic traits and things like that. So you can imagine that she had precisely the kind of environment that is going to cause you to develop borderline personality disorder, to as a coping mechanism with all these negative feelings that you have. You develop vulnerable narcissism, in which you tell yourself that you're the best, you're a misunderstood victim, you're absolutely wonderful, and people should look after you. You could completely imagine this is exactly what this would create. And there's going to be a genetic component to this, i.e. of these traits, and they are then creating this kind of environment in which she's going to develop in this maladaptive way. She starts then to idealize people, certain people. Who does she idealize? She idealizes school killers. The example she gives is the Finnish school killer Pekka Uuvinen, and there's various others. She idealizes school killers. She sees them as doing something good, something moral. Here's the Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So she sees them as helping humanity, helping evolution, because most people are just vile. She knows a great deal about these killers. She's obsessed with them, essentially. These are autistic traits, and there is a strong association among women between autism and borderline personality disorder. Autism, in which the world is this swirling chaos, and you take in too much information, and you feel lots of feelings strongly, including negative feelings, and you have a strong desire for order. And so this can cause you to be bullied, and she states that she was bullied a lot by her family and by people at school. And it causes you all kinds of horrible stuff to happen to you, and therefore you develop borderline personality disorder as a consequence, and you develop narcissistic personality as a coping mechanism, and so she's all of this happens to her, and then she convinces herself that, as with these shooters, she must do something moral, something altruistic for humanity, and that is to kill people for the greater good. And that is what she then does. And presumably, because she was bullied by people at her Christian school, she was a former student at this school, so she's resentful. There's the vengeance element as well, and you can start to see how she fits completely with the stereotype of the female killer. So there's lots of wringing of hands and asking, how is this possible? How can there be a female killer? Well, I think we have our answer. They fit borderline personality, Munchausen syndrome by proxy, essentially, post-traumatic stress. These things come together, and depression, and these things come together to, in some circumstances, create the female killer. And that is what we have in Natalie Samantha Rupnow. I hope this is a bit of interest, and if it has, well, do subscribe and all that, and I will see you soon, and goodbye! Are you ready for the future of the West?